Now, it's difficult to know at the best of times whether politicians believe the bullshit they say, and given that we're in the midst of an election campaign, it makes it even tougher to know whether they're putting forth genuine policy prescriptions or they're just trying to win some votes and hope that after the election you forget the promises they made during the campaign. And so with that in mind, what are we to make of Prime Minister Scott Morrison's pledge to give 5-year jail sentences for online trolls? Facebook trolls will be jailed for up to 5 years and social media giants forced to reveal the extent of customer dissatisfaction under sweeping changes promised by the coalition if re-elected. And that's a big if. Less than 2 weeks away from polling day, Prime Minister Scott Morrison has declared trolls have no place in Australia. Surely that's racist against trolls, isn't it? Vowing to lock up people caught abusing or harassing people online. Currently, those caught using a carriage service such as Facebook or Twitter to harass or cause offence face a maximum 3 years in jail. Really? Causing offence on Twitter can get you 3 years in the big house? Notice the language is cause offence, so presumably someone can just claim to be offended and thus by definition you have caused offence. Go straight to prison, do not pass go, do not collect $200. But if this were the case, then our prisons would be overflowing. If we were locking up everyone causing offence on Twitter, you'd have to build new prisons just to hold them. But let's take a serious case of online harassment, that of Erin Molan, who was the token female on the NRL's footy show, because all footy shows have to have a token female to signal how diverse and inclusive they are. Molan managed to parlay token female status into the position of host after Fatty Vaughton was sacked in 2017 because of poor ratings. Molan took over in 2018, but strangely having someone that's never played footy in their entire life as the host couldn't arrest the sliding ratings, and now there is no more footy show. But that's a whole other video. Anyway, Molan apparently received death threats from a guy who was more than a little upset at Molan's ascension to the top job. Although they don't show the messages, the Daily Mail claims the guy said he would hunt her down and kill her. Molan, no stranger to abuse online, said that she blocked him several times, but the guy continued to create multiple profiles to bombard her with messages. Now, I'm no lawyer, but that does sound like harassment. The guy is clearly unhinged, creating multiple accounts to say horrible shit. Most likely he's a cowardly keyboard warrior and not a real threat, but he's definitely crossed the line of harassment. He was convicted, fined $1,000 and given an 8-month suspended sentence. Would 5 years in prison be more appropriate? I don't know. What is the usual penalty for harassment in the offline world? I don't know that either, but 5 years sounds harsh just for being a horrible prick online. So clearly we need to be able to distinguish between serious cases and some name-calling. Or are we going down the route of the UK where we have police calling people up for saying such heinous things as a person with a dick calling themselves a chick isn't the same as a biological woman? The coalition also wants the companies behind popular video games such as Fortnite to keep young gamers safe by ensuring the most restrictive privacy and safety settings are the default option when signing up. It is estimated that 200,000 young Australians experience bullying during multiplayer online games each year, which could be cut down if security settings were tighter. Yeah, because kids brought up on gaming consoles aren't savvy enough to change the privacy settings. But what are we talking about here? Making it so they can't communicate with anyone? Microphones automatically muted, unable to receive or send messages? That's great for a bunch of friends playing Fortnite together. Who comes up with this dumb shit? You know you can mute your own microphone and block messages just like you can block or mute people on Twitter and Facebook. And notice the government has now bought into the language of safety, blurring the line between real physical harm and words. And look, I'm not saying bullying doesn't happen and doesn't affect people. Clearly it does. But has anyone stopped to think why kids are so fragile? Possibly it has something to do with helicopter parenting and wrapping them in cotton wool to try and prevent them from hearing anything remotely offensive. Social media giants will also be held to account with new laws forcing tech companies to reveal the number of complaints they receive about abusive content and what action was taken. The government hopes the transparency reports, which will be similar to those released by the telecommunications industry, will force social media companies to quickly respond to reports of online abuse on their sites. While the measure will be voluntary at first, the Morrison government won't rule out forcing the gaming sector to implement the change. So more red tape for companies to comply with for absolutely no benefit other than the government being able to scold them like naughty children, so politicians can appear to be doing something. And to justify it, Morrison decides to play the concerned parent card. As a dad, I know firsthand how anxious parents feel about what their kids see and do online and the dangers the internet can bring. Online trolls have no place in Australia, and I promise to bring in new laws to protect our kids and keep our community safe. Mr. Morrison said no one should be subjected to vile abuse and harassment, whether they're in the online or offline world. Now, I find these kind of statements paternalistic and hollow. Murderers have no place in Australia. No one should be subjected to sexual harassment. Everyone should be able to leave their doors unlocked when they leave the house. Don't tell me to take precautions and not stumble home blind drunk at 3 a.m. by myself. Tell men not to rape. Yeah, we'd all like to live in that utopian fantasy world, but the reality is we don't. There are arseholes out there, but luckily online there are things you can do to avoid them. We need the law to keep pace with technology, and I want to ensure the courts reflect community expectations about the seriousness of online harassment, abuse and crime. Yeah, well, I bet there are more than a few people in the community who expect that if you're being harassed or, God forbid, offended online, then maybe close the computer and go for a walk, or use the block or mute button. And if it escalates, as it did in the Molan case, okay, get the cops involved. But can we harden up a little in the taking offence department? And remember, this is the Liberal Party proposing this, and if the other nutjobs get in, which seems likely, what will they propose? As usual, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you next time.